Hi. Happy Monday, everyone. My name is Jenna Schulman, and I am an independent educational consultant, which is just basically a college counselor in northern New Jersey, and where a lot of my students apply and even attend the University of Wisconsin-Madison, a super awesome college town, the capital of Wisconsin, right in the Midwest. But here to tell you all about it, someone who lives in Madison, Mark Swenson, who works for the University of Wisconsin. And I will have him walk through, everything from admissions to academics to student life to the school spirit. And as always, we encourage students to ask questions that I will get to at the end. I see he's already chatted some. You're way ahead. So I love it. Proactive. So yeah, without further ado, I just gave you screen sharing privileges if you need them, but I'm happy to welcome Mark.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Jenna. This is really exciting. I'm glad to be here, and thank you for everyone who's coming to participate with us today. Looks like we have a good group, so I'm excited to be here and talk. So as was mentioned, my name is Mark Swenson. I am the Alumni Relations Manager and a Freshman Admissions Counselor here in the Office of Admissions and Recruitment at UW-Madison. I am the primary representative for the state of New Jersey, but I've recruited all across the country, including our state of Wisconsin and all up and down the Eastern Seaboard as well. So I'm very familiar with the area. And the Northeast as well. Beyond that, just a little bit about myself. I have been in our office for roughly about 5 years now. I'm also a two-time alumnus of the university. So I have a bachelor's degree as well as a master's degree from our School of Education. So hopefully today I can share a little bit about not only that admissions expertise, which I'm sure is a big part about what we want to talk about today, but beyond that, share a little bit about that student perspective. And again, as Jenna mentioned, kind of what it's like to live in a really tremendous place like Madison, Wisconsin. So I do have a PowerPoint here in front of us to kind of work off, but I will keep this a little bit more informal and really touch on some points, particularly those that you might have pre-identified when you registered for this session. And we'll go throughout. And obviously, if you do have points of clarification, don't hesitate to put those in the chat. I'd be happy to address them. But I do want to get to getting into some of the things that are likely going to be, big on your mind is talking about that admissions process, kind of what that's going to look like into this upcoming year, and make sure we devote some time to that. So again, we'll be a little bit more informal as we go throughout this presentation. And so don't worry if it looks a little bit familiar to you if you have sat in on one of our information sessions previously. But I will make sure that you are not distracted by my mug here, so I will stop and take my video off just for the purposes here. But again, I'll talk just for roughly about, maybe not quite 30 minutes here, and then transition what we can talk about questions. But one thing that I think we always really want to start with, and I love starting out with when anytime I'm having a conversation with somebody who is still continuing to build their knowledge about UW-Madison, is kind of something that we think makes us a little bit different and a little bit unique in this landscape of higher education, which is, I fully understand, can be really overwhelming when you're trying to find that place that's going to be the best fit for your needs. And one thing that we think does make us a little bit unique is this thing called the Wisconsin idea. If you've done any research on UW-Madison, you may have come across this, and it really is kind of the foundation of our university. It's been kind of our guiding principle since the early 1900s, and it's really this belief that the knowledge and the learning that you're acquiring in that classroom should not be bound to the four walls of that room. All right, and it's really this, this forward-thinking attitude and this belief that you should be doing something with your degree to better the lives of people in your community, in your state, and across the globe. So it really is something that is a huge, significant point of pride for our student body, for our alumni, for our faculty, for our campus community, and it really is a challenge for you to do something with your degree. So if you're really looking for a place where you can really take this degree out and use it to really impact people, in whatever way that might be, UW is definitely a place in which this is going to be interwoven into so many different aspects of your academic, social, extracurricular experience here. And again, this has really been one of those driving factors in leading us to become one of these one of the most recognized institutions in the nation. But again, these are likely some questions that you've probably asked yourself throughout this admissions process at some point in time, and is roughly just kind of, again, a little bit of an outline about what we're going to talk about today. So I do want to start off talking about academics. We'll definitely transition in that admissions process, and then talk a little bit more about that student life specifically. And I'll definitely be able to give you a good overview of kind of what Madison is like, particularly if you haven't had that opportunity to get on out here or only been able to learn about it virtually. So obviously the academics is a huge piece of the experience here at UW-Madison. And first and foremost, we want to stress that UW-Madison is a rigorous academic environment. Okay, so that's why we were really going to be looking for those students that have shown that they've been able to do well in rigorous coursework at the high school level, because that's a big indicator of your readiness to come to our campus and be successful. Regardless of what you want to study, here at UW-Madison, there's going to be so much variety, and we have such strength across a wide variety of areas. Okay, so we do have just a little bit of an overview of our kind of our academic breakdown. We do have 8 schools and colleges with over 120 different majors. So again, a great deal of variety to choose from. The variety is a word that you can obviously apply to any number of these large public research institutions, because there is so much flexibility for you to really create that very individualized academic experience to you and no one else. And that's one thing that I personally love about the experience at Wisconsin, is that, while we have these general education requirements that all students must fulfill, the way in which you do that is pretty darn diverse. And there's so much different choice that you have in really creating something that, again, is specialized to you and your specific interests. And when it comes to academics, one thing I do want to mention just before I jump in and talk a little bit about some of these schools and colleges is, if you're undecided or you're going between a few different ideas and you don't have it quite figured out yet as a 17-year-old, that is okay. That is completely okay. And being an undecided student, especially in a place like Wisconsin, where you have those resources like a cross-college advising center like we have that works with undecided students, we want to make sure that you have the time and have the capacity and the resources to find that best fit. Okay, so just something to keep in mind. Again, when you're thinking about exploring a place like Madison. So I do just want to briefly talk about each one of our schools and colleges. I won't go into a great deal of depth here, because I do want to spend the majority of our time on some other topics, but I would absolutely encourage you to do some more research on each one of these schools and colleges, particularly if you come across some of those major programs that you maybe want to learn a little bit more about, or a little bit curious about what it is, because it may be a name or something that you're not quite familiar with. I will give my big plug here for the College of Agriculture and Life Sciences, because I am the admissions liaison to this school. I personally love it, obviously, because we have a rich history of agriculture and life sciences here in Wisconsin and in the state. But this is really a tremendous place for students to really get that started and going on to such a wide variety of different career opportunities, going on to medical school, going on to be food scientists, forest ecologists, among other things. So a great deal of variety that you can do with this general focus in the life sciences here in CALS. And I know a couple of folks indicated interest in veterinary science on the registration here. And if you're thinking about veterinary science down the road, we do have a fantastic animal sciences program. So if that's of interest to you, do encourage you to do a little bit more research. And over 70% of our students will complete some form of really hands-on learning. So either in the form of a practicum or some type of research opportunity. And we're really blessed as the public flagship institution in the state of Wisconsin. So we have research centers all throughout our state that are going to give you so many tremendous opportunities. But know that, again, internship opportunities are by no means limiting you to the state of Wisconsin, the Midwest, by any means. So the School of Business, I know there's likely some pretty significant interest here within the Wisconsin School of Business. So it is a top 20 ranked program in the country. So that said, it is a competitive entry. All these majors are competitive entry majors. So that said, I'll talk a little bit about that direct entry process to the Wisconsin School of Business. But again, it's called the Wisconsin School of Business. We don't have any name. Believe it or not, a group of alumni actually put down a very significant donation to make sure that the Wisconsin School of Business was not named after anybody. We just wanted it to be reflective of the quality that we have right here within the university. So just a unique thing, because I know a lot of other schools, are known by a particular name. We are just, again, the Wisconsin School of Business. So, something a little bit reflective of our state, I suppose. But that said, you're going to find some pretty unique majors here. The newest major that we're really happy that is coming online this year is supply chain management. So it previously was just a certificate program, or what we called minors here at UW-Madison, or excuse me, yeah, we call minors our certificate programs. So supply chain management, new one, if you're of interest, do a little bit. You will also, again, notice that we do offer direct entry. I will talk here briefly about the direct entry process. So if you do want to be considered for direct entry into the Wisconsin School of Business as a freshman, all you have to do is indicate a business major or undecided within the School of Business as your first choice on your application to UW-Madison. There's no supplementary application you need to submit. We work very closely with the business the School of Business on making these recommendations and these decisions in our office. Okay, so that said, really what we're looking for in those competitive direct entry applicants, there's no set test score or anything that we're looking for in that capacity. We're obviously going to be looking for students that have done well across rigorous coursework, particularly taking a little bit of a look at that math preparation, and also looking for that demonstrated interest and really that indicator that you're really ready to jump into this business curriculum. And that can come in the form of so many different forms, whether that be activity in student organization, whether that be a job you previously had, internship opportunity. There's no set formula for that. But something to keep in mind is that there are two really viable routes in gaining entry into the School of Business. All right. So you may be admitted direct entry as a freshman. However, we may also admit students as pre-business students, or you may start in another area and you're thinking maybe down the road, oh, I do want to major in business. There is a pre-business pathway in which you can work with a pre-business advisor, taking the necessary prerequisite coursework before then applying, typically at the end of your freshman year for entry as a sophomore. And so keep in mind, about the breakdown of graduates from the School of Business, it's about 50-50 between those that gain entry via direct entry versus pre-business. So if you're really serious about Wisconsin and you perhaps may not have been offered direct entry as a freshman, doing the pre-business is still a really, really viable pathway. All right. So again, it's not like if you don't get, direct entry as a freshman, that it's a incredibly difficult process. It is definitely again, viable route in going that pre-business pathway. So just wanted to provide a little bit more clarity, because I know that's a big, pretty common question that we get regarding business. So moving on to the School of Education, we have a really unique School of Education. We're really proud that we actually, believe it or not, boast the #1 rated public curriculum and instruction program in the country. So really, really deep history in elementary ed, special education, particularly programs we're continuing to want to grow as we think about those next generation of teachers. But we also have, over half of these majors are not on the path for teaching licensure. So we actually also house our art, dance, theater, as well as our health-related kinesiology, rehab psych programs here, and our brand new major, health promotion and health equity. So very, very timely for obviously the world that we're all living in right now. So that said, again, a really unique School of Education. Every single student within the school will complete that either practicum or student teaching experience here. And we do have direct entry for anybody interested in dance. So there is an additional application and required audition. So that is the additional step that you would need to take if you're thinking about joining potentially the dance program down the road. So another one that we're probably going to get a lot of questions about is that College of Engineering. So again, 13 distinct engineering majors here. Vast majority of our engineering students will complete a co-op experience. So that really intensive internship experience, often lasting about 7 months, in which you will be working full-time at an engineering firm in which you've been strategically placed, while also maintaining full-time student status. So a really awesome transition from that educational world into that professional environment. And we do also offer direct entry to the College of Engineering, a somewhat similar process to business, in which you need to indicate a engineering major as your first choice or undecided on your application to UW-Madison. You will be required to put a secondary major choice outside of the College of Engineering as well, though. The reason for this is that engineering brings in the vast majority of their students via that direct entry route. So while it is possible to transfer across campus from other majors, it is somewhat difficult. So that said, they're trying to bring in those students as freshmen who really show that readiness to jump into that engineering curriculum. Particularly things we're going to be looking for, again, is that math and science preparation. Those are going to be some really strong indicators, again, of your readiness to be successful in the College of Engineering. Again, a top 15 ranked program in the country. So moving on, a school that I think a lot of students find a little bit later on in their undergraduate careers, and I hope that that's not the case, because there's such a unique set of majors here within our School of Human Ecology. So community and nonprofit leadership, human development and family studies, interior architecture is a fantastic program. And those students even had the input into the redesign of the Homestead School of Human Ecology that was just completed just a couple of years ago. We also have personal finance, which has some slight differences from obviously that of our finance, investment, and banking program in the School of Business, retail and consumer behavior, as well as textile and fashion design, which also has a strong partnership with the Fashion Institute of Technology in New York as well. So some opportunities for study in New York through that textile and fashion design program. So if any of these are piquing your interest, definitely do a little bit more of a deep dive into SOHE, otherwise known as that School of Human Ecology. Here's our College of Letters and Science. So So again, vast majority of our undergraduate majors and our undergraduate students are going to be found within here. Really fantastic school where you're going to be seeing our language programs, hard sciences, our School of Music, for instance, our School of Journalism and Mass Communication. So a great deal of variety. Oftentimes really, really common that we see students in LNS do some type of double major because there is so many opportunities to layer in these different subject areas, even if they are pretty different. So do know that double majoring is a pretty common practice at Wisconsin. And oftentimes some of the most common areas in which we see that happen are going to be across majors right here within the College of Letters and Science. So just a little bit of a plug for that. Also, our two smallest schools on campus are our School of Nursing and our School of Pharmacy. So our School of Nursing does just offer the one bachelor's degree, a Bachelor of Science in Nursing. And it is located really conveniently right next to our region-renowned University of Wisconsin Hospital Complex. So a lot of fantastic opportunity for that applicable experience. And believe it or not, we even have two other hospitals within one block of campus. So three tremendous hospitals so students can get that really wide range of applicable experience before jumping out on that professional world. And likewise, our School of Pharmacy. If you're interested in working in pharmaceutical research or just have an interest in global health, pharmacology and toxicology is a really fantastic place. But if you are thinking down the road about possibly going on to that PharmD program, you can apply for that program as an undergraduate, regardless of your undergraduate major of study. But you can apply for that and gain admission even before you complete your undergraduate degree. So again, that is a very quick overview of kind of academics, but I do want to jump in and talk definitely a little bit more in depth here when we're talking about admissions. So what is our admissions process? I think a lot of people get the impression that at a place like Wisconsin, we just plug test scores and GPAs into a calculator and whatever pops out is how we build our class. And I can truly attest to the fact that it could not be further from the truth. That is not how we go about this. We truly do leverage a holistic review process, meaning that we look at every single element of your application and making that final determination. But the biggest thing that we're looking for is going to be that academic excellence. And there are no scores or GPAs or formulas that we utilize in this process. I can tell you that 100% is the case. We really want to, again, see that you're prepared to be successful with us, but then also learn more about who you are as individuals, because our job as counselors is to find the students that are the best fit for our community. And we can't do that with just one or two data points like test scores and GPAs, okay? So moving on, this is just a really kind of high level overview of kind of what we expect to see from these strong and competitive applicants in our pool. And I'll talk a little bit about how we kind of evaluate each one of these elements here a little bit more in depth for you. But we're looking for that strong academic profile. So we hope to see students that are challenging themselves across a variety of subject areas. So the main core subjects that we see are those English, math, social science, and foreign language. So seeing students that have continuously challenged themselves in those areas is something we hope to see. And do know that we recognize that curriculums are going to be different from school to school. We're never going to be comparing you to students that go to another school. We want to know about you as an individual in the context in which you were educated. Okay, so that said, we hope that you're taking advantage of those rigorous courses that are available to you, whether that be coming in the form of honors, advanced placement, international baccalaureate. We don't expect a certain number of each one of these, but seeing students that, again, are advancing to that upper level coursework across multiple subject areas is really helpful for us to see. And we obviously hope that you're doing well in those courses, all right? We hope to see A's and B's, but obviously one softer score here or there is by no means going to completely write off your application, all right? But again, seeing consistency and particularly strong trends in those grades are definitely helpful for us. We're also able to learn about who you are from a letter of recommendation that we do require from an academic source. So that's helpful for us in understanding who you are in the classroom. And believe it or not, we read your essays, and they're a really valuable piece to our admissions process. And we're looking for college-ready essay writing, because believe it or not, you're going to have to do a lot of writing in college, regardless of your area of study, whether that's in STEM, whether it's English. So again, that is something that we're expecting here. And I think a big characteristic of our student body at Wisconsin is that we're a very, very engaged campus. There's so many outlets and opportunities for you to be active. And we're not looking to see that it's exactly reflective of what you're doing in high school, but seeing students that have been able to balance that involvement outside of the classroom with being able to do well inside the classroom is, again, a really helpful factor for us in assessing those students that are going to be a good fit for our campus community. And again, we know that things like COVID-19 are going to have significantly impacted your ability to engage with things. So we're not looking for quantity, we're looking for quality, and the fact that you're involved in a variety of things, and seeing that be able to translate to our campus is very helpful. And you can really tell us a little bit more about that story through those essays as well. So really kind of how to apply. This is where I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the next steps, especially for those of you that are thinking about this in the upcoming cycle, and also kind of how we look at about each of these things. So I'll spend a good little bit of time on here and then make sure I transition and talk a little bit more about kind of campus life. But again, you will be able to submit your application on our website. I'm filling out the Common App and that $60 fee or fee waiver should you qualify for one. You can self-report those grades through the Common App, okay? But of course, if your school is going to be sending a transcript to us, we will absolutely accept that as well. When we're looking at course and grade information, again, not to blow anybody's mind here, but believe it or not, I'm going to look at your GPA for a really, really short period of time. I just want to know what it means. I want to know what it means in the context of your school. So that's why our admissions team is really well trained to leverage things that we have in front of us, like school profile information that your counseling staff is going to be giving us, so we understand the curriculum in the school in which you've been educated. Okay, that's really important to us because I'm going to dig very deep into a transcript when really kind of understanding your particular situation. Okay, so I'm going to go much beyond that GPA to ask myself a lot of questions. I'm going to be asking myself things like, again, obviously, how has the student performed? What type of courses have they taken? Have they challenged themselves? Where are their areas of strength and how does that relate to their major? How have they trended across their time on campus? Did they maybe have a rough freshman year, but now they're on a really positive trajectory? Are they continuing to challenge themselves into senior year? How did COVID-19 and any school closures impact this particular school, and what was their policy? That's important context and helpful information that we're going to be looking for so we can understand that. And if we do have any questions, believe me, we're going to be asking so we can get that good understanding and holistic picture of who you are as an individual in the context of your school. Okay. So again, want to clear that up and make sure you kind of understand how we're going about that. We also do require 2 essays, one being one of the 7 Common App essays that you can select that prompt from, and then one specific campus-specific essay, which is essentially the effect of why Wisconsin. Why are you applying to UW-Madison? What do you hope to accomplish academically with us? So this is a great opportunity, truthfully, because if you've clearly done your research on a place like UW-Madison, not only is that going to benefit you with that college decision process down the road, that's going to be really helpful for me as a counselor and envisioning that fit. And again, we really do leverage these because we really want to know who you are as individuals and how you're going to be a unique addition to our community. So do put some time into those essays, and please include the right school in there. Oh man, we're really selfish as admissions counselors. We want to be wanted. And when we see essays that list the school, it's not the University of Wisconsin-Madison, it doesn't make us feel good. So that is just my quick little plug for making sure that you're proofreading those because they are a really helpful piece in our process. Do make sure that, again, you're listing down all of those different things you've been involved in, asking for that one letter of recommendation from an academic source. Of course, we'll receive supplemental letters of recommendation, but it's really helpful that, of course, that's going to be coming from somebody who is not somebody who knows you in a different capacity, likely than the previous one. And new this year, a big change for us is that we will ACT or SAT scores will be optional as part of the application through December 31st. So again, this is a little bit confusing. I'll put some clarity to this. So currently, we have approval to make this optional through early action. So our early action deadline is November 1st. We do have a ask out to our University Board of Regents, which governs an entire 14 campus system here in Wisconsin. So there is an ask out to make sure that is going to be pushed and extended beyond that December 31st date. So more to come on that, but if you plan early action, that will ACT or SAT scores will be optional. So again, we recognize that many of the significant impacts in trying to find testing locations and things such as that. So again, we do not expect this to be seen in the application process, and if students do not submit those test scores, it is not going to be detrimental to them in the admissions process. Okay, I just want to make sure that is clear. So we're kind of moving on some dates and deadlines to keep thinking about. Early action is likely going to be on many of your minds. That is November 1st, guaranteeing that decision by January 31st, but we are hopeful that we're going to be able to get some of those out earlier. Something to keep in mind, we don't release decisions on a rolling basis. So this is going to likely be coming out in one large decision release. Again, when that will be will be dependent probably likely on the volume of applications that we do get. And then our regular decision deadline, February 1st, decisions by the end of March. So you can hear admit, deny, or defer an EA. And we do defer students for a variety of reasons. Really encourage you to keep us updated with any information, including submitting those mid-year grades to us. That's going to be really helpful for us to get that most holistic view of you, an updated view of you when we review those deferred applicants and get that decision back by January. And again, regular decision, you can get that waitlist offer. And it's important that you do have that plan B if you are a waitlisted student. No news there likely. But again, early action, regular decision are our 2 competition periods. So financing your education, do want to, obviously put in a plug for filling out that FAFSA, and just giving you a little bit of context that nearly 60% of our students receive some form of aid. So we want to make sure that you are aware of this. We do have a priority filing date, so just of December 1st. So just that guarantee that you're able to get that financial aid package back a little bit sooner. But I will transition here to talk quickly about scholarships, because it's important to note that the vast majority of our scholarships do require an application and aren't automatically awarded. So that might be slightly different from some other institutions that you're looking at. But what's great is that you can simply put in a kind of a general scholarship application and then see what individual scholarships you qualify for, and you can apply for as many as you would like. All right, so the more effort you put into this, you could definitely reap perhaps some more financial benefits. Something to keep in mind is that many of the deadlines for those are February 1st. So you may not know your admissions decisions, but you still can apply for scholarships. And I would very much encourage you to do so. And this hub, this Wisconsin Scholarship Hub, is also the place where you can apply for scholarships every single year. And oftentimes students we see get access to scholarships of larger sums and more exclusive scholarships the deeper they get in their study with us. So I do want to be conscious of time and transition to talk about things like our campus community and things that are accessible to you here. Particularly talking a little bit about our campus community, and really I think what is one of the biggest benefits of being a large public institution like ourselves is the diversity in our student body. As a person who came from rural Wisconsin, being able to meet people from all across the country, New Jersey, New York, California, and all across the world was one of my favorite pieces of the experience. And knowing that I still have a friend network that truly is global right now is something that is one of my biggest takeaways from being a student at the university. So we are a large place, obviously over 30,000 undergraduate students with representation from every county in our state of Wisconsin, 50 states and 130 countries. And again, we're excited about that, a diversity of background, of geographic diversity and experience. And again, it is something that I think makes our community so incredibly special. And an alumni network of over 400,000 living alumni around the world that definitely love to look out for their fellow Badgers. So a little bit about residential life. I will touch on this briefly. We do have 21 residence halls. So we have two distinct neighborhoods, our Lakeshore neighborhood and our Southeast neighborhood. And I can point those out on some different visuals that we have upcoming here. But we don't require our freshmen to live in residence halls, but vast majority do, particularly because of some of the benefits, including close access to dining facilities, our residential learning communities, and just a lot of the ability to have those community building activities as freshmen. We are located in this city, and I'll talk a little bit more about Madison here. You definitely do not need to have a vehicle on campus. A number of ways in which you can get around, including biking, and a really tremendous bus system that students get free access to. Again, when it comes to finding your community on campus, there's so many different ways in which you can find that sense of comfort and community in a large place like Wisconsin. Something I always tell students is, a large university can definitely be daunting. Again, as somebody who came from, a small rural community, coming to Wisconsin was definitely a little bit of a culture shock. But the thing that, solidified for me that I could really find my sense of community was how much access I had to these things. And if you have that, that really sense of, that really sense to be your own self-advocate, you can really make that your own. But because we're going to put all these things in front of you, but we can't make you engage with it. So, but if you are out there and really know what is going to be the best fit for you and supporting you academically, emotionally, and socially, you're going to be set up to be a rather successful student. So a great way to transition to campus is by academically is by participating in a first-year interest group. So it's intentional because it's a grouping of 3 to 4 courses centered on a common subject area that you're taking with the same group of 20 students. So you get this kind of more cohort model. And there's also kind of a seminar taught by a faculty member who organized that first year interest group. So you get that close access to faculty along with that shared experience with other students just in your first or second semester on campus. So a really, really great opportunity there. I could go on and on about how many different student organizations we have, so many different ways in which you can be involved. Again, I think it's a huge characteristic of our students is that we love being involved outside of the classroom. A big common question that we get is like, what is your percentage of Greek life? Roughly about 10% of our student body participates in Greek life. And when you think about it, perhaps a smaller percentage you might find at some institutions, but when you think about our size, it's a rather big chunk of our student body. And many of our traditional fraternities and sororities are all similarly housed in an area, so you can really feel that you are immersed in that environment if that's something you're interested in. But we also do have a number of other simply academic fraternities and sororities as far as Greek life goes. We also have intramural and club sports. So intramurals are Badgers competing against Badgers. Sport clubs are oftentimes sports in which you're going to need to try out for. And obviously, will compete against some other regional schools as well as some other of our peers in the Big Ten. And I would be remiss if I didn't talk about our Big Ten Badger athletics. So we're a little bummed out about obviously not having a fall football season, but Big Ten Badger athletics, for me, honestly, I think it's really just more, if you want to have that school spirit, Madison is definitely the place. We have been rated as the #1 college football town in the country. So Madison is very much the place in which you can show off that school spirit. But I really just think that the pride that people have in our athletic programs is really just a way to kind of channel the pride that we have in the university and what our university means in terms of groundbreaking research, in terms of really what it, the impact that it's had nationally and globally. So that's really how I think about athletics. But again, there's a number of ways in which you can get access to student tickets. Many of them are simply free. And one in which you can purchase a small, very, very affordable student packages to our Badger Women's Volleyball, which I think is one of the best environments on our campus to watch any type of sporting event. We competed in the national championship last year, but are unfortunately not going to be having that fall season this year. But just a plug for that. And kind of moving on, again, the Wisconsin experience is really this enhancement of some of these in-class opportunities. So I've talked a good bit about research, but we're the #6 research institution in the country. So do want to make sure that you're aware that this is very much accessible to undergraduates, all right? And that being involved in research, you can through formal and very informal means. And if you want to, there definitely is going to be an outlet for you and a number of different advising services within your school or college that can get you connected to those. Similarly, there are career offices in every single school or college on campus. On an annual basis, we have over 400 companies and organizations physically coming to our campus to recruit students for their internship and co-op experiences, recognizing the tremendous prep that you're going to be getting here as a Badger. And again, you're not limited by any means to the Midwest for those internships. We see alumni that are hosting students for internships all across the country, even abroad as well. And again, study abroad, obviously more to come about the timeline with those programs getting back on, but not studying abroad is definitely one of my very, very few regrets about being a student at Wisconsin. And we are actually, believe it or not, #1 in terms of semester-long study abroad participation or in the country. So again, something that a lot of our student body really loves to participate in there as well. And I will kind of move on here because I do want to make sure we have some time to talk about Madison, and then I will turn it over for questions, I promise. But hopefully this has been informative. So if you haven't been to Madison, I really, really hope you get an opportunity to do so. I'll pop into the chat just a way in which you can take our virtual tour, which I think is a great way to really get a feel for kind of what campus is about and how it interacts with Madison. So as Jenna kind of mentioned at the outset, Madison is the capital of the state of Wisconsin. So it's a really awesome sized city because you do have about 250,000 residents. So you do get a lot of the amenities and things you might find in a much bigger metropolitan area. Like, for instance, really tremendous arts and culture. So, great shows. We have, a ton of awesome bands that are coming through different music venues throughout the city. An underrated food scene, if you ask me, believe it or not. I mean, we are in the Midwest, but we have some tremendous food. I love just all the options that we have accessible to us here, close here. But you're in this place that has access to, again, a growing airport. But beyond that, it's still a college town. It's still a college town in a place that's easy to navigate and is by no means overwhelming. But the university is a huge part of the city, but by no means the only thing here, which I think is, again, kind of the best of both worlds when it comes to that. So you can see on this picture that our campus really does kind of blend into downtown Madison. We're connected to our state capitol building, which you can see there right in the middle of our isthmus. By State Street, which is a pedestrian mall, 6-block pedestrian mall that connects the Capitol to our campus, located right along the lake, the shore of Lake Mendota. So our campus, it really is picturesque. It's gorgeous. Definitely, maybe not what you might have thought about the Midwest if you didn't really know about Madison before, but it's a tremendous place to be in all 4 seasons, believe it or not, even when it is a little bit cold out there. But we definitely do get all 4 seasons here in the city. But it's a tremendous place for outdoor activities. One of the most bike-friendly cities in the country. So it's a really common way in which students get out and around campus, which I think is awesome because, there's paths dedicated just to bikes. So you can definitely feel that you're doing it safely while still being able to get to class in a timely fashion. And again, the city of Madison itself has topped a lot of best lists, including being one of the best cities for young adults, again, being one of the best college towns in the country. So it really has a lot to offer here, and definitely ways in which you can find the things that are going to, again, support you in your individualized experience. So we'll kind of skip over talking a little bit about next steps because this is geared toward a lot of our underclassmen. When you are ready to apply, make sure that we're receiving things by the deadline. I can't stress that enough because the longer you wait, the more stress you're going to put on the people that are involved in this process, including yourself, recommenders, counselors, and us as well that are fielding your inquiries as well. So again, keeping in mind those deadlines and make sure things are received by those. That's my plug right there. And then keeping in mind things like applying for those scholarships and being able to make sure you can log in so you can check the status of your application as well as view your admissions decision. So with that, I do want to be able to turn it back over for some questions. And again, hopefully, while I've been talking at you a lot, hopefully that has been helpful.
Thank you, Mark. We do have a few questions. This is a very long one. Mm-hmm. So if a student is applying early action, he or she has to make a choice if they're applying test optional or not on the application. So let's say that they choose test optional for early action. What if the student is able to take a late October, November, or December test and wants to send those scores? Can they call admissions and ask you to consider their scores if they previously indicated test optional, or does indicating test optional in the application mean that they can't change their mind?
That is a great question. I'm going to try to give you my best answer, but I definitely am fine with sharing my contact information so I can follow up with that. But so we're learning about this as well. So I'm going to try and give you what I think is going to be the appropriate response here. So if you're able to indicate test optional on there and you are able to take that later test date, my word of advice, so just in general, when you submit your application, there is no guarantee about when we will evaluate your application in that process, okay? Because it is completed, we may be able to evaluate it earlier in our admission cycle, or we may be waiting to see, other applications from a particular school group fill in. So there's really no guarantee about, it's evaluated on a rolling basis is what I'm trying to say here. So that said, there's no guarantee that we would have those test scores when we complete that evaluation of your application. However, if you are able to take that test and you want that to be considered as part of your application, my word of advice would be to make sure that you email our office and let us know that you would like to submit these test scores. And then that communication, best communicated to us in the form of an email, will be added to your file. So any reviewer that comes across that and they see that, oh, we're waiting on future test scores from this student, that'll be something that I see as a reviewer, and that may be something that I want to see, and that'll be something that we can evaluate in that capacity. But again, there is no guarantee that we will see it by the time a final decision is made on that application, particularly if it is that late, December, even November or December test date. But if you want to at least make us aware that you are taking this exam, you very much can, and we'll make sure that is something that we take into consideration. But the more information you can give to us, the better. But again, just trying to communicate, there is kind of no guarantee, particularly because we're trying to get through these evaluations as quickly as we can. So I hope that makes sense to an extent. And of course, if there was a situation in which you perhaps were, say you were a deferred applicant, right? And obviously then that exam score would be accessible to us, and it would be a new piece of information that we would take into consideration in our review.
Yeah, so Mark, the kids that are unable to take it until November, December and feel like they want to submit their test scores, do you advise them to apply early action test optional or regular decision with test scores?
Yeah, that's a great question.
That is a really hard question. Oh my God, I didn't even mean to make it that challenging.
That's a tough one. That is a tough one on a Monday, no less. No,
okay, you don't have to answer it.
No. I understand. Hey, that's a very real question. I get it. Believe me. And I think that's a very, very individualized. I think it's very individualized because if you really feel confident in that exam score that you think you're going to earn, again, you can wait. And we definitely still admit students in regular decision, right? There is not a significant disparity in terms of our admit rate between our early action and regular decision. If we see qualified students, there's a good chance we're going to be extending an offer of admission to those students, okay? But if you do feel really strongly that you want that test score as part of your application, you very much can wait till regular decision. But I will just highlight some of the inherent benefits of early action. Obviously, being able to hear back sooner, that option to potentially be in our pool longer if you are a deferred applicant, and I'm just going to throw this out there and not advocate for one way or another. The test score is really just one factor that we're looking at. And again, we don't expect students to have that this year. We really don't. So, it is optional. And if a student doesn't have that test score, we are not going to look upon them negatively or negatively compared to a student that might. Like, obviously, if we see a strong test score, that's great. But if perhaps we, when we're looking at our holistic review, you may have a really tremendous test score, but if we're not seeing, great work day-to-day academically, that, we may still have some concerns. So that said, again, it is just one factor that we're looking at, and by no means the end all be all. But if that's something that you do feel very strongly about, you very much can wait till regular decision. So
Yeah.
Again, a very individualized choice there.
Well, I know normally in a year I email you like 15 to 20 times.
That's all right. That's all right. We'll be ready for it.
Hopefully this question has alleviated some of the emails.
Yeah.
Foresee in the future. And so I like the part that you pointed out that you're not a rolling institution, because I know I have a lot of students that are taking the September SAT and they're like, I want to apply, but like, why should they, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think, again, it's just kind of that personal thing where you have everything submitted and you just don't have to kind of worry about it. So I think it's kind of a de-stressor in that capacity. Right. But yeah, I mean, again, there's no guarantee of it.
You don't care if they apply on November 1st at
Nope.
11:59 versus right now.
Not at all. I might be able to tell in those essays that you applied at 11:59 on October 31st, but no, yeah, exactly. Other than that, yeah, I mean, definitely. If we see it and it's completed, and yeah, exactly. I'm reading applications well into November, and I'm not necessarily sure about when those were necessarily being submitted. So yeah, absolutely. Yeah, the rolling piece is definitely not a huge benefit there.
Cool. And are merit scholarships also test optional?
That is a great question, and one I don't have the answer to. I know that we're working, our Office of Student Financial Aid is working closely with some of these individual scholarships to see. So again, we don't have those automatic merit-based scholarships. We really don't. Merit is definitely a factor that may be considered by certain individual scholarships, though. And I think that we're working with some of those different, whether they're alumni, whether they're different, businesses or organizations, to see if there is ways in which those can be adapted in some way. But yeah, I'm sorry, I don't have more of an answer on that one, but that's a good question. I think one that we're definitely still reckoning with, knowing that it's going to be a much different year.
That's okay. I'll probably email you about that. And
fair enough.
All right. Is test optional? So many test optional questions. Is test optional for a class of 2022 or just 2021?
Great question. Still to be decided. So that Board of Regents meeting that I mentioned, I'm not sure how far out the request is from our Division of Enrollment Management to push that. But again, there's so many other schools in our system that this is going to be, that are considering this. I've heard that it may be just the 1 year, or it could be a push for even maybe 2 to 3 years. So more to come on that. I'm not really quite sure where that's going to line up, but we're going to make sure you have that information as soon as we know. So obviously you can kind of plan what those next steps are down the road, but that's a good question.
Are you only able to accept a certain % of test optional students this year without it affecting your ranking?
Not to my knowledge. Nope. Again, it's optional. So we don't expect to see, I mean, we're not going to be disadvantaging any students. And again, our office isn't really worrying too much about our ranking. We just want to admit a really great class of students. So, that said, again, that I don't believe is really something that's been under consideration for us.
Yeah, and honestly, all the data for schools everywhere this year, it's gonna be so skewed. There's gonna be like an asterisk next to 2020, 2021. So I don't think it's obviously just unique to Wisconsin. So yeah, I don't think anyone's really worrying about it. Do you track interest?
That is a good question. So we don't formally track demonstrated interest for the purposes of our review. So I'm not looking to see how many times you've opened our emails, if you've visited campus, if you've read seen one of our info sessions. No, we have such a large applicant pool. We don't want to disadvantage students in that capacity. And obviously many students haven't been able to get to our campus. So that is not considered there. However, if you really do want to share that you're passionate about UW-Madison and this is the fit for you, you absolutely can do so. And I would argue that the best way for you to do that is by sending us an email. All right. Just because those emails, especially once you've completed that application and you're sending us updates and just want to share your continued interest in the university, send those to our office. And those are going to be, then that communication is then going to be added to your file. So it will be something that'll be reviewed by any subsequent people that are going to be reviewing your application. So that is just a way in which you can really share, that particular passion that you have for UW-Madison beyond some of the confines of the other application materials. But we don't necessarily expect to see that. But if that's really something that you want to do, the email communication to make sure that it's getting linked to your file is the best way to do that. Because again, we're not tracking phone calls and the like.
And I don't know if you mentioned this, I had a phone call before, so I kind of did put you on mute for a little bit, but the supplemental question you have, it's why Wisconsin. And so, that's a way for you to gauge their interest, but like, what are you looking for when you read that?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great question, Jenna. Again, we're not looking for specific content or anything like that, but again, I think it's pretty clear to see the students that have really done their research on UW-Madison, and it's pretty clear that you have a vision and really how I describe it. And this might not be, I hope this makes sense, but like students that can clearly paint that picture of themselves as a student on our campus, I think are some of the best essays, because it's not just listing things and like having this templated thing, but then changing the name of the school business and changing the name of this particular finance club or whatever it may be. Just really showing, how you're going to be kind of transitioning from these things that you may have done or been interested in high school, and how that's going to translate here at UW-Madison, and being able to leverage those things that are going to be accessible to you, whether that be different student organizations, different courses that you might want to engage with, things such that. I think, again, we don't expect like specific examples, but I think it really shows students that UW is truly something that they can really see themselves. So I think, again, the more detail that you can provide to that is beneficial, again, in multiple ways, from just that college decision. Again, the more confident you feel about that, the better this is going to be, but then it's also going to help me out a heck of a lot with my job. When I'm thinking about that fit and layering that in as one more piece of the review. So again, no specific content, but again, I would say that more clear picture, particularly, academically, socially, extracurricularly, is always helpful.
You talked a little bit about merit money before. Somebody asked, could you please talk about the percentage of students that receive merit scholarships and the average amount?
Yeah, I'm sorry that I don't have any statistics on that, because again, we're not giving out those automatic awards. Again, merit is that factor, but because we have so many different scholarships of so many different values, it's really difficult to calculate or even report out what an average award is. So I know that that's difficult and doesn't really help you when you're kind of thinking about how to afford a place like UW-Madison. But if you visit our Office of Student Financial Aid website and look at our net price calculator, you can get kind of a sense of what that worst case scenario starting point is, and then going from there, you can get a sense of, again, what are some of those scholarships you may be able to qualify for. Again, factoring in that there may be the chance for some of those lowest tuition and fees even later on in your undergraduate career. So again, I know it doesn't really help at the moment, but just something to kind of think about, and how our model is slightly different in that way.
So Madison doesn't give out automatic scholarships, but is there like an external website to go on and find them?
Correct. Yep. Exactly. Yep. Yeah. It's this Wisconsin Scholarship Hub. Again, you'll get it. All students will get information about it, and many of those scholarships kind of come online to start applying for around November 1st, thereabouts. So again, that's one other benefit to applying in EA, is that that's the situation in which if you are admitted in EA, you may be able to know your admissions decision, so you can apply for those scholarships. But again, I don't want that to deter anybody who is deferred or who is waiting to apply in RD, because you can still apply for those scholarships even if you don't have an admissions decision. Really difficult to motivate yourself. I completely recognize that when you don't have that, but it can only benefit you in the long run. So,
you mentioned that you are the #3 research institution in the country. Is that based on number of students participating?
Oh, that is a great question. So again, I will correct myself. We are the #6 research institution in the country, so I don't want to share incorrect information. But that is in terms of research funding that we receive as an institution. That is not about number of students participating, but because we have part of a significant part of our endowment goes toward funding research. That just makes it so much more accessible for our undergraduate students to participate in, where there may be some institutions where it might be a little bit more restrictive to just graduate students, but we have research going on in every single school or college and across disciplines, even beyond the hard sciences. So that research expenditure, I think, translates to accessibility as well. There's a correlation there.
If a student takes a gap year and applies next year, will they get more priority over next year's student? I don't really have a question, and I don't think you do either.
Yeah, so if they take a gap year and apply, there's definitely no priority. Like if you're a qualified student, like we'll see that you graduated the year before, but you're definitely not given any priority, or it doesn't affect you negatively, right? However, I guess the one thing is that you wouldn't necessarily likely see a deferred decision because we wouldn't be waiting on mid-year grades or anything like that. But the thing that you could do is if you do intend to take a gap year, for whatever reason that may be, you can apply, this year and then apply for deferred enrollment. So you could be admitted to the university, apply for deferred enrollment. We do need to approve that request. So if you really share kind of what you're planning to do during this period of time and just kind of guarantee that you're not going to be taking any other college level coursework, then you will be expected to be, we will expect that we'll be welcoming you into either spring 2022 or fall 2022, depending on, again, how long you want to defer that enrollment for. And then, of course, you'll still receive the same updates, student orientation and registration before the term in which you would start with us. So 2 different options that you could go about, again, applying and then deferring enrollment. Some students do that for particular gap year programs, but we need some rationale for it. Or you simply wait and then apply, but no priority given there.
Okay. Somebody asked, can you talk about transferring to Madison from another UW university? Is it automatic if you fulfill certain classes?
Ooh, that's an interesting question. Huh.
Aren't they all separate?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So first things first, transferring is a very viable option. I know I skipped over that a little bit, but like I actually came to UW as a transfer student. So it's a super viable option, whether that be intentional or something that you kind of find out down the road, right? So that said, we have an interesting system in which we have a really comprehensive public education system here in Wisconsin. So we have 13 4-year campuses in the state. And also we have, I believe, I want to say 8 to 10, 2-year campuses as well. So there is a guaranteed transfer program through our 2-year colleges. So you would be able to take a certain courses that are going to be fulfilling some of those general education requirements. So you will need to sign a contract and you will be guaranteed admission. But this is, again, after you fulfill essentially a full 2 years of coursework. So it's not necessarily going to be just one semester and then you're going to be able to come into UW-Madison. So there is that option. That contract has been reworked a few times in terms of what the requirements are. So I would look into that. But from our 4-year campuses, because those are 4-year degree granting institutions as well, we do want to play nice, and there is no guaranteed pathway from those 4-year institutions because, again, they're awarding very similar degrees as we are here at Madison, so we're peers in that capacity. But we do see students that are transferring from those areas, but we do have guaranteed transfer programs, again, with our 2-year public UW institutions, but also with some various technical colleges around Madison that some students also do leverage to save a little bit of money, still get the experience of Madison, and then transition their way to UW as well. So again, another option that you might have out there. Good question.
What is the rate of admission for out-of-state residents? Is it more competitive than in-state students?
Yeah, that's a great question. So again, so as a public flagship institution in Wisconsin, our commitment is to our residents here in the state. We have no problem kind of sharing that forth. So our Board of Regents does require us to enroll at least 3,600 students from the state of Wisconsin every single year. All right. And last year we brought a pretty large class to campus, about 7,500 students thereabouts. So again, it was hovering somewhat right around that 51, 52% mark. We're coming from the state of Wisconsin, but that's going to change. It's going to vary from year to year. So there's no exact percentage. We're going to make sure that we enroll a strong number of students from Wisconsin, but then we see a lot of that other capacity and that other growth that we see in our classes coming from students from out of state. All right. So when you're looking at admit percentage, we definitely see that we are likely admitting some of those students in Wisconsin at a higher percentage, but we're still admitting students outside of the state of Wisconsin at a really strong percentage too. Our overall admit rate was roughly about 50%. So, and that holds true, across a lot of our non-resident populations as well.
Speaking of out-of-state students, what is the easiest way for them to fly into the Madison area? And shuttles from the airports or trains?
Awesome question. So many different ways that you can go of different costs to you. So we're really lucky because our Dane County Regional Airport, which is right in Madison, has been growing the number of direct flights and the number of gates, a crazy amount just in the last few years. So as an admissions rep, I love that there is now a direct flight to Newark, which is pretty awesome. It's on a small plane, but there's direct flights to Newark, to LaGuardia, a lot of different airports. So in terms of ease of that is one thing. And there is option for ride sharing opportunities. You have a Madison Metro bus pass that all students have access to save a little bit of money. Some students might fly into much bigger hubs like, say, Chicago or Milwaukee, and there is a Van Gelder or more of a Greyhound-esque kind of charter bus that runs students right to campus. So we have multiple buses that run from campus to various airports, whether that be in Madison, Milwaukee, Chicago, all throughout the week. So there's a number of ways in which you can take a bus shuttle down there as well. But again, Dane County Regional is the closest airport. But if you do want to save a little bit of money, there are plenty of different transportation options to get you to some other bigger metro hubs as well.
Great. All right, I'm taking some final questions in our last 5 minutes, sure. But I do have a question. So I am a Big Ten girl. Lots of my students apply to lots of Big Ten schools, Midwestern, big, large state universities. What do you think stands out about Wisconsin?
Yeah, that's a great question. I always have such a tough time answering it because, like, I mean, the Big Ten's awesome. Like, let's be honest. Like, Jen, I know where you went to school, but like, there's so many great options in the Big Ten, and I know it's tough differentiating, right?
We're
like,
a late Big Ten ad. I went to Maryland, so I feel like
exactly
this connection because we were ACC, but.
Right. Well, we're glad to have you in the family. Let's say that.
Thank you.
But yeah, it's tough, like differentiating these things. And again, it is such an individualized experience, but I think some things that kind of make Wisconsin unique are just kind of part of our sort of identity is that Wisconsin idea. It's such a big point of pride that, like, we're really challenging our student body and our alumni to really do something with your degree. And if you really want to take this 4 years of your life, perhaps some of the most fun 4 years of your life, and really apply what you're learning and what you're paying for, and using that to really drive you to do great things outside of that, professionally, personally, whatever it may be. That's a huge driver for us. I know it's a big driver for me, and it's a big point of pride for me as a Wisconsinite and as an alumnus of the university. And it's been something that's driven us to do really awesome things. Like, I didn't share the stat earlier, but I will plug this in here. Sorry for using this medium, but we, believe it or not, are the #1 school in terms of alumni serving as not only Fortune 500 CEOs, but as Peace Corps volunteers. So I think it's really that Wisconsin idea at work is really going out to be a leader and being a trendsetter in that capacity. But I think something that just about us is that we're pretty laid back folks. In Madison, if you've ever had the opportunity to be there, you're going to be expected to work hard. You know what? You're going to be expected to work hard in the classroom and really put in that work to do something with that degree. But we also want you to have a good time. We want you to be able to take in what Madison has to offer and how many different opportunities you have to meet new people, and participate in these different things that we have outside of it. So it's not a competitive environment in that way. You can find that space if you want to, but I think we really do balance that opportunity of really being able to have that college experience and giving you that flexibility to make it what you want. But at the core of it is really going to be challenging yourself and working hard in the classroom. So I think that's a pretty broad or vague answer to your question there. But
no, that was great. I'm sorry that I won't be able to, connect with you in New Jersey. And
that is too bad. Yeah.
Yes. Someone said thank you. That was very helpful. And I'm also sorry that we can't play each other in football this fall. But I
know. I don't know what I'm going to do to spend my Saturdays here now. But I guess I'm going to have to find some other type of hobby. But
review applications.
Yeah. Truthfully, though, that's probably going to be what is going to be filling it. That's a really good point. That's a little sobering, but thanks for that, Jenna.
It's the reality. It's almost.
It is. Yes, it is.
All right, well, thank you so much. This was super helpful, and I personally hope to get out to Madison soon. It's supposed to be such a great city, and on the Cows tour, I hope that that's still going on.
Yes, we'll definitely keep you updated on that when we learn a little bit more here next couple months.
Yeah. All right. Thanks, everyone. Thanks for joining us, and happy Monday.